Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Breathe If You Agree. As we gear up in the final days of the election, we are so excited and honored to welcome a very special guest.
Today, we welcome Congressman Robert Garcia from the 42nd Congressional District of California. The congressman also served as the mayor of Long Beach and is the first openly gay immigrant ever in Congress.
The congressman, originally from Peru, it's a little longer. You've done so much. You've accomplished
It's a long
so much.
resume.
The intro is a little bit longer.
It's okay.
But originally from Peru, he has worked for years on education policy, tackling the climate crisis, protecting and expanding rights for immigrants, the LGBTQ plus community, women, and so much more.
And now he's helping Kamala Harris become the next president of the United States. Thank you so much for joining us today, Congressman. We're really, really feeling so lucky to have you here today.
Welcome.
I'm super happy to be here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, like we said, we are so honored to have you here, and we would like to jump in by discussing your background and what your journey was like becoming the first openly gay immigrant in Congress.
Sure. Well, first, hey everybody. I think obviously for a couple, more broadly speaking. So what's interesting is in Congress, there's actually only 10 LGBTQ plus members. It's the largest the kind of queer caucus has been, and so to be one of those members is always like I feel like an added responsibility to your community because you have to make sure that you are representing your community. Not just your constituents you represent, but also more broadly speaking, just gay queer people across the country. So I was born obviously in Peru. I came to the U.S. when I was a young kid, and I became a citizen like my early 20s when I was in college, and then I pretty soon after that I started getting involved in just like politics and my community, and so I ended up running for mayor of Long Beach, which obviously is a California city, about 500,000 people. It's a pretty big city. And was elected there as first kind of out mayor elected in Long Beach. And I served as mayor for 8 years. During that time, I'm also an educator professionally. So I taught in the classroom and at the college level for about 10 years. And so I've been teaching during my time right leading up to becoming mayor, got elected mayor, and then my congressman retired. So it was a pretty easy decision to run for Congress. But even though we have 10 members, it hasn't always been, even within our own community, a diverse group of kind of queer members, and so there have been 2 LGBTQ plus Latinos, and certainly no immigrants, and we're about actually to elect this year our first trans member to Congress, which is like super exciting. And so so now I'm there, and I'm really proud to represent California. I'm also president of the freshman class of Democrats. So there's 37 Democrats in our class, and I'm the freshman class president of our class. And there's also a freshman class president of Republicans. He's obviously straight. But great. And so I'm very proudly gay, obviously. I try to incorporate my own identity into like the politics that I try to do, and excited to be with you, but also excited to push pro-equality legislation and elect LGBTQ plus candidates to office.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, like, as you were saying, the representation of having queer people in Congress and across the board is so important. One of the questions that we wanted to talk to you about specifically in this election is, LGBTQ plus rights in the election and what's at stake. Kind of the protections that Kamala Harris has to take care of the community, and also kind of, there's a lot spoken about with what Trump will do and won't do, and kind of what we know that's at stake, and I guess information that you could share that seems kind of more important that might have been swept under the rug in the upcoming election.
Yeah, first, this is like a super important election. And so I think I think there's 2 pieces of this. I think as like queer people, there are issues that directly impact us, which I think are really important. And then there's the other issues that impact us as human beings. And I think that it's really important that we understand both of those. One, I think we should be crystal clear that Donald Trump is a danger to democracy and to our country. He is a convicted felon. He has tried to overthrow the last fair election that we had in this country. And he has consistently try to essentially restructure the economy so that more money goes to his billionaire friends and less for working folks. He also has zero interest in uplifting communities of color, supporting women. He's put in extreme members on the Supreme Court. So I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to Donald Trump. And I think the reality is that him and the Republican Modern Party today have been very anti-LGBTQ plus rights, and especially attacks on the trans community. He has installed judges that have rolled back rights decades for our community. He has no platform as it relates to supporting our community moving forward. He would not support the Equality Act. He's been clear on that. That is a large piece of legislation, which is kind of our top priority in Congress, that would enshrine LGBTQ plus protections in the workplace. There's no federal workplace protection law for gay people in this country. People think there is. There is not. There's a kind of a statewide approach, state by states. Some have protections, but there is no real federal protection that covers every state. And so Kamala Harris would sign that bill. She would support that bill. And Donald Trump has been pretty clear that he would not. So that is a clear difference. But I want to also let folks know the kind of person that Kamala Harris is. A lot of people don't know this, but she's one of the first people in America to marry same-sex couples. When she was the DA in San Francisco, that's where the modern gay rights movement as it relates to marriage started. Her and then her governor, Gavin Newsom, which I'm sure a lot of folks know, began marrying same-sex couples. She did it. This was a long time ago. I remember watching this on TV, and that started this kind of movement that then began going to the courts. There were court cases, finally going all the way through Congress to the Supreme Court. And of course, we're at a point now where same-sex marriage has been enshrined into law. But Kamala Harris has been supporting us for a very long time, her entire career. And I think we will have the most pro-equality administration if she gets elected. So I think all of those things are really important.
Yeah, and I think also basically off of what you said, something that's so important with these candidates and looking at their past and history is that, when you look at Trump and you see kind of how he's his disrespect for certain communities over time, since the 90s, since the 80s, it's time and time again, and it's in a lot of ways it's gotten worse, and he's also been more public about the way that he feels. When you also look at Kamala, like you were saying, she's been there since the beginning. She's always supported it. She hasn't changed her mind, and I think that's a very commendable thing and something that many people should remember when they're voting, that this is someone who has worked to improve these things and not gone 20, 30, 40 years backwards.
I think that's totally right, and I think that Kamala Harris. It's funny. I've taken her before to an actual LGBTQ bar. You guys have probably been to the Abbey, obviously.
Yes.
So
yes.
I've actually gone to the Abbey with her. Maybe this was like 5 years ago or so, and we took her to an event that we had there. And she's so comfortable in gay spaces, supporting the community. She's a great ally. And I think that just beyond the fact that she's a woman and we're just so long past the time where we should be electing women. Let's give women a chance to run the country. I think we'd probably be better off at this point.
Yes,
we need.
So I think that she is going to be so incredible. I just can't imagine that anyone in her community, every time I see these like gays for Trump, I'm it's
infuriating. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's infuriating and it's insane.
Yeah,
because you're literally voting against your own self-interest.
Yeah.
And I tell folks if you're supporting Trump and you don't really care, he's not going to his policies aren't going to impact you. His policies will impact trans people in our community. His policies will impact working class, low income communities of color in our community. Friends that actually need the social safety net to get by. And so it's not just about voting for us, it's about being a decent human being and voting for the broader community.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well, I know Kamala's running mate, Tim Walz, I saw at a rally closer to when he was announced that he was the president of the Gay Straight Alliance at his school, which also they both have just such beautiful backgrounds supporting the LGBTQ plus community, and that's very important to know going forward. So love them both, and thank you for always supporting us and continuing to fight the fight. Now, LGBTQ plus rights are not the only rights that are under attack right now, especially women's reproductive rights are also very much widely under attack. And I was wondering if you could talk about Kamala's plans to keep these rights protected and moving forward, because we know that there comes a lot of dangers within this sector with another Trump presidency.
Yeah, I think there's two really important pieces of this. I mean, one is the courts. So the president appoints not just Supreme Court judges, but judges to federal courts, appellate courts. And so the idea that we could have someone like Donald Trump appoint more judges that will roll back rights. I mean, we literally don't have abortion rights nationally because of the Supreme Court, because Donald Trump said, I want to roll back these rights. He was very clear about who he wanted to appoint. And so we are going to have Supreme Court openings, I imagine, certainly in the next 4, maybe 8 years. And so who do we want making those appointments for women's rights? We want to ensure that Kamala Harris, who both supports and wants to ensure that women have access to reproductive health care, makes those appointments. So that right there is the single most important reason we need a president on abortion rights. The second piece is we already know that Kamala Harris has said that she would sign essentially a national support for an abortion law in this country. So right now we have a ban essentially put in place. She would reverse that ban. If Congress puts that reversal and basically enshrines the right to reproductive health care in this country, she would sign that bill. So that's the second important piece, is her policy agenda would support women's health care. And it's not just in laws that Congress can pass, it's in her administration. How would the Health and Human Services Department under Kamala Harris be different in providing support to places like Planned Parenthood and health clinics than a Trump administration would? And so both on policy and on the courts, that's where the impact to women and reproductive health is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think you know, a lot of Americans, but especially women, and it always confuses me, women who aren't so terrified by the reverse of Roe versus Wade. It's frustrating and it's terrifying, and I think that something that's wild to me is that like every single person in the world can relate to a woman, has a woman in their life, whether it be a daughter, a wife, a mother, anything, and so it just feels like an essential right. So I'm terrified to see what happens, but I know Kamala would do a great job. And kind of adding to the Trump of it all, you know, we're just a few days out from the election, but Sunday the rally at Madison Square Garden was as concerning as it was upsetting, and you know, I think many people see this. A lot of people didn't, but clearly with all the guests that they had lined up, they spewed messages of hatred towards, I mean, the list goes on: women, LGBTQ plus community, Puerto Ricans, Palestinians, Jews, women. It just goes on, and I kind of think that the message there is that bigotry is their way to win. And you know, what does it say about Trump and his campaign that he would allow this to happen? I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised, but I guess would love to hear your thoughts. And then also for, you know, any voters who are still undecided after seeing something like this, like what would your message be to them to kind of make it crystal clear about who this is, the person that they would be voting for?
So I think one is anyone that speaks at a political rally or event for a candidate, that's been endorsed by the campaign. I mean, at the end of the day, even the Trump campaign said, "Oh no, we removed worse things from that comedian's set." So they saw what was going to be said. Donald Trump's rallies and events are full of hate speech. I mean, it's not just his warm-up acts. I mean, Donald Trump himself, for example, have called immigrants like myself that we're poisoning the blood of this country. He calls America basically that we're one big trash can. He demeans migrants. That's, you know, created these lies that migrants were eating pets and cats and animals in Ohio. I mean, he says the most disgusting, offensive stuff. And he has not, by the way, denounced those comments that the other speakers had said, one of which, of course, called Puerto Rico an island of garbage. And so that kind of stuff is incredibly offensive to all of us. And we have to remember that Donald Trump is, this is who he is. His speakers and the extreme MAGA right are obsessed with this idea of how they view the country, He keeps saying in his speeches, "Well, I'm nothing like Hitler. I'm not Hitler." Well, his language certainly is. His supporters, certainly many of whom are white nationalists, and many of his supporters are, quite frankly, racist and care only about themselves in some sort of world where women are less so than men, and that men are dominating this country. These things should worry all of us, and so that's a reflection of who he is. And I think we should also think about and understand that what Donald Trump says, he means, because we already have a first term to look at. This man was a literal lunatic during the COVID pandemic. He told us, let's not forget, he was telling us to inject bleach in our bodies. He was hawking strange medications for COVID that weren't approved, that weren't working. He was not listening to the medical experts. The reason why our economy crashed as hard as it did, the reason why over 400,000 Americans died under his watch, was because Donald Trump was incompetent during the COVID pandemic and would not listen to experts. And so not only listen to what he says, remember what he did, and remember where we were not that long ago. And it was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that pulled us out of that and are still trying to get our economy back on track and our healthcare system back on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, on just a little lighter note, because you have known Kamala Harris for on a personal level, I was wondering if you had a favorite memory or any words that really stuck with you, other than obviously the incredibly inspiring words that she shares at rallies, or anything that really you carry with you in your life as a friend of Kamala.
So I can think of two. There's a couple. One that relates to our community. I remember this has been a few years ago. This is before she was vice president, when she was in the Senate. She was here in Long Beach, and we were doing some events. And I said, "Hey, we're having an event at the local Hamburger Mary's in Long Beach." And she was like, "Oh, let's go." And so I took her to Hamburger Mary's. And it was packed.
Yeah.
Brought her right in. We went on stage. There was an Equality California group that was there. And she just addressed everyone, took pictures with everyone. And she stood there letting everyone take their photos, and just talked about how much love was in the room and how she respected everyone and their own journeys in their own, in their own space, and how they became themselves, and that, and how she loved everyone for who they were. And I think that was really something where I sat there going, this is a special person that is willing to go into our spaces and speak directly to people. And I actually have some great pictures from that event.
I'm sure.
And then I think I would say a second one, which is what showed me, I think, a lot of her character, was when she won her Senate race in California. That's the same year that Donald Trump won his presidential race when he became president. And the next day, she called me and said, "Look, it's hard for me to celebrate because this person has won president, and I'm really concerned about how the Latino community is feeling and is reacting to his horrible rhetoric." I remember he announced when he ran for president that that Mexican immigrants were essentially rapists and murderers and criminals. And so she said, "I want my first press conference and gathering to be with the Latino community and immigrant communities, so I can explain to them directly that I'm going to fight for them in the U.S. Senate, regardless of Donald Trump being elected." And so we went together down to downtown Los Angeles and gathered all these groups, and she did a big press conference. That was her very first action, was telling the Latino community, many of them who only spoke Spanish and were really scared about their futures, that she was going to be a fighter for them. That is who she is. A lot of people don't know the real Kamala Harris that we know, because we've seen her interact here in California so long. But she is a kind person. She's thoughtful. Her values are in the right place. And I think when she's elected, because we are going to elect her, people are going to be blown away. I mean, people are going to be like, we just lucked, and we got an amazing person as president. It's gonna be great.
Right.
I can't wait till she's president.
I know.
For her.
It's amazing to hear these stories. I mean, it's on such a human level. I think we all want to elect to someone that we can relate to, and also someone that we would want to sit down with, or someone who also has our best interests at heart. And that's just not Trump. And I think there are so many stories of Kamala where it is like that. She's thinking about the individual. She's thinking about every community. She's thinking about the American people. And that's just, she's the right person for the job. Absolutely.
And she's done. Oh, sorry. No, please.
No, you got you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, y'all too in the campaign have done such a beautiful job, like going into different spaces as well. Like even for work, I'm on social media, but like seeing how many different like spaces she has entered, whether that be music or different trends online or anything, reaching these different voices in different communities in different ways, because talking to different everybody is a human being at the end, but in a space of LGBTQ plus and reassuring us that safety, and also like showing interest of how we got so comfortable and like became ourselves, but then also with the Latino community and making sure they knew that she was going to fight for them, like the entire team has done such an amazing job. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean the team is like incredible. Obviously it's an honor to be one of the national co-chairs, but my job is to provide some broad advice and thoughts, and the real all of the credit goes, I think, one, to her, because she's running the kind of campaign that she said she would run, and then these organizers that are on the ground, many of who are queer and LGBTQ plus, that are just working their ass off every day in all of these states. They're doing such a great job. We have an Out for Harris group as well, which the great organizer that leads that group named Sam and his whole team and everyone. We're out there doing events, riling people up, and you believe it or not, like you just never. One of the craziest things to me is going out and like meeting gay people that are voting for Donald Trump, and I'm just like, what are you?
Right.
And the part that bugs me the most is these guys, and it's almost always like men, and it's and it's these guys are also like still into like our culture and our art. Like they might be Drag Race fans, or they're it's like, so you want to get queer art like drag, but then not support the queens and the artists that are being harmed and attacked violently through these policies and through what Donald Trump wants to do to this country. So it's a real disconnect, and I hope that within our own community, we can call these folks out and not allow them to not be accountable for the harm that they're doing.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you framed it perfectly. It's always like my brain breaks in a way, because I'm like, what you're saying, how you feel, and the way that you're voting they don't make sense when they're combined. It's a very infuriating thing, but I know we don't have that much time left. So I guess, I this past weekend I went canvassing in Pennsylvania. I was super inspired. It was amazing. We went to East Strasburg and knocked on doors. I think one of the amazing things was hearing from so many lifelong Republicans who are voting for Kamala for the first time, and Democrat down the ballot. We spoke to a 95-year-old man who was voted for Republican his whole life. He just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not having my last election be voting for this man. I guess what would your words of advice be to anyone who wants to participate, what they can do, anything that they can do moving forward? I know we're in the crunch time, but there's still plenty of time to get stuff done.
Absolutely. So this would be my advice. Number one is we have this weekend coming up. It's the weekend before the election. Get involved. Do something this weekend. If you can canvass a neighborhood, if you go to, for example, Kamala Harris' website, they have a volunteer portal. You can make phone calls, calling to the swing states, but do something. Make another donation. That's all you can do. But be a part of this movement. Everyone needs to be involved. And I always tell people that are canvassing or calling, it's hard work, but every contact is really important. Like oftentimes, I can go canvassing for an afternoon, and I might only talk to 3 or 4 people, and that's and some people when they canvass for the first time are thinking, wow, I didn't talk to many folks. That's a lot of people. If you can make an impact on 2, 3, 4, 5 people. That adds up to all of the folks that are having that same experience across the country. And now you are talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the country. And so making a phone call, going walking, making a donation, I'd highly encourage you to do something this weekend, because we want to leave it all out there. We want to run through that tape and win and ensure that we get her elected, because there is no other choice. The other choice is a complete disaster for our community and the country. And so please get involved. Obviously, KamalaHarris.com is the best place to do so.
Great. Wonderful.
And we will have that link in the bio.
Yes.
So click it if you actually no, click it no matter what.
Yeah, click it.
And thank you so much for joining us. And we will go to the Abbey soon to celebrate.
Yes,
if you're down.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Drinks on us.
yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank
We are,
you so much. This is
endlessly inspired by you.
Such an honor. And just a reminder, please go vote this weekend. Democrat down the ballot for Kamala Harris. Send in your mail-in ballot. Go drop it off. Go to your polling place. There's multiple websites, the Kamala Harris website, but also I Will Vote if you want to see how to do that in your state. But Congressman, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. Thanks.
Thank you.